Hey everybody, how's it going? It's the Daily Shooter, and today we're going to be taking a look at what I would consider to be the toughest 1 to 8 on the market today. This is the Trijicon VCOG 1 to 8.
Whoa, they ain't never seen nothing like this before. Lit the room when I came through the front door. Ask me if I should overcome. What for? Train in the trees, please walk my sycamore. Touch burning sands, cross lands, and stormy shore seasons in the year, yeah. Ain't no channel for champions and chain no fear. Yup, the champ is here. Switch gears, we keeping haters in the rear. At the blood, sweat, and tears, and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. And today, we break through. 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 I know it's lonely at the town.
Okay, so the Trijicon VCOG 1 to 8 by 28. Easily, hands down, one of the best optics I've ever reviewed on this channel. This thing is a beast. It is as tough as you're gonna get. Made out of 7075 T6 aluminum with a really thick 34mm body. This thing is good to go. I'd put it on the same level of durability as like an L-can. Though typically when you're talking about a 1 to 6 or a 1 to 8, companies will design those optics for the competition shooter in mind. Somebody who's gonna do 3-gun or something like that. And so you end up with an optic that's supposed to be light, it's supposed to be durable, but at the same time, durability isn't the main focus. This thing was actually built from the ground up to be a combat optic. VCOG stands for Variable Combat Optical Gun Sight. So this thing, again, was built from the integrated mount all the way up to the material that they used for the glass, the housing, and so forth to be a combat optic, and that's what you get here. So it has got some great features. One of the things I like about this is that there's nothing I would change in terms of a combat optic. If you were going to take this and use it as like a 3-gun optic, then there are some things that I would change. But again, if you're going to be using this as a hardened optic that you want to make sure that you have something that you can defend your life with, then yeah, there's nothing that I would change about this. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the tech specs, features, and details of this sight, and then I'll talk to you guys about some of the experiences that I had with it shooting. Now, before we go any further, I want to thank OpticsPlanet for sending this out to the channel for review. There is no way that I'd be able to afford anything like this to be able to show you guys exactly what it's all about otherwise. So having them support the channel, sending out stuff that I can actually review and give you guys, you know, video content that wouldn't be available otherwise is a massive help to the channel. Now, I can't put any links to OpticsPlanet down below, but I do have my own website now. So my website will be linked down in the description box. You'll find this exact same video over there, and you'll find any discount codes or links in that video description on my website. As a matter of fact, I have a page dedicated to OpticsPlanet. You'll locate that up on the drop-down menu or above my logo. That will allow you to drop down and go see all of my reviews that I've done for OpticsPlanet, at least the ones that I've uploaded to the website so far. So anyway, definitely check that out. And again, I want to thank OpticsPlanet for sending this here. Okay, so now let's go over some of the tech specs, details, and features of this optic. Again, this is a 1 to 8 by 28. So at 1x, this is supposed to have no magnification whatsoever, but typically in scopes of this type, you usually end up with a little bit of variation between 1.1 and 1.2 magnification. So there's a little bit of magnification when you're shooting with both eyes open. Sometimes you could see two different sizes of the object that you're looking at. With the VCOG, it's as close to 1x as I've ever seen, meaning that I can shoot with both eyes open when this thing's all the way down to 1x, and the target looks exactly the same through both eyes. So it is as true of a 1x as I've ever seen. But then again, you have the ability to dial it all the way up to 8 power, and at 8 power, I mean, you could really reach out there. As far as the eye can see, it does have a ballistic drop reticle with a first focal plane reticle. So basically what we have is a segmented circle. So there's 4 different segments of the circle at the 10 o'clock, the 2 o'clock, the 4 o'clock, and then the 8 o'clock position. So you have these segments in your circle. In the middle of that, there is a smaller reticle with some bullet drop compensating hash marks and stuff like that on it. I tried to get some video of it, but apparently I didn't have the camera installed on the back of the scope correctly, and so the image isn't exactly what I want. Most of the shooting that I did was in 4 to 5 power, depending on, you know, what distance I was shooting, but you could see the reticle looking at it at 4.5 power, what it looks like. The reticle actually changes being first focal plane. So in 1x or at 1x, basically the reticle is just going to be a segmented circle. That's the majority of what you see, and you would use that to make your aim, right? But then as you zoom in with the first focal plane, the reticle enlarges, excuse me, and the segmented part of that circle becomes larger and almost, out of frame, and then you would actually use the reticle that is hard to see at 1x, which enlarges, and that gives you your ballistic drops and so forth. So again, you have a true CQB firearm that is also perfect for longer ranges, so that's fantastic. Plus we have a 28mm objective. Typically on a scope like this, you're looking at a 24mm objective. So here we have a 28mm objective, which allows you to get a little bit more light. It allows for a better field of view. It just allows for a better side picture, to be honest with you. When you look through this thing, you get a great field of view and you can see exactly what you're wanting to see. It does have a 34mm body, but you don't have to worry about scope rings because it has an integrated mount. Now, I personally like an integrated mount because it means that there's not going to be any error on my part when I'm mounting this thing up to the rifle. That means that the level of the scope itself is going to be perfect with the mount because that's the way that everything was built together. So it's going to be perfectly level. You're not going to have to worry about scope rings coming loose and the thing becoming canted a little bit to the left or right, and maybe your adjustments are going to be off at that point. So having this scope mount built into the 34mm body is fantastic. Now they also have an integrated I forget what you would call this thing, but it's basically a fin that sticks up that allows you to throw the optic from 1 all the way to 8 a little bit faster. So instead of just having a little bit of knurling around the body itself, this has an integrated fin on it that allows you to move it just like a standard lever, so you can kind of move it a little bit faster. Now, as far as eye relief goes, this thing has incredible eye relief. One of the things I couldn't believe is that the eye relief pretty much doesn't change. It barely changes, if anything at all. It doesn't change between its lowest setting at 1 power all the way up to 8 power, which means that I don't have to change my cheek weld. If I am sitting here, and again, it's I think 3.9, 4 inches, something like that is what your typical eye relief is going to be on this scope right here. So if I'm sitting at 3.9 inches away and I have perfect eye relief at 1x, and I zoom this thing all the way up to 8x, I don't have to change the position of my head. I don't have to move back and forth. If I have a traditional cheek weld that I'm used to, then with this optic right here, I can stick to it because, again, the eye relief doesn't change between the magnification settings. Now, on this one, we do have cap turrets. The cap turrets are tethered with a little metal wire, as well as the battery compartment cap as well that has a little wire. The battery compartment turret actually the tether actually broke, and that's because a little brass piece that clamps everything together, I don't think it was clamped all the way, and so I had one side that came off and I just ended up clipping off the other side. But I can tell you right now that even though it's a nice feature to have when you have these tethers, they can kind of get in the way on this scope because they kind of ride inside of the knurling on your caps, and so when you're trying to twist it, you have to hold it in the perfect position, or else that little brass component will get stuck in the knurling and you'll have to, kind of find the right spot in order to take it off. So that can be a little bit of a pain, but at the same time, you don't have to worry about losing your caps. Now, they do sell this in MRAD or MOA, so if you are somebody who is used to mil radiant, that's perfectly fine. If you're somebody like me, an American who's used to MOA, even though MOA I don't think is as precise as mil, it's still what I prefer. You could still get these in adjustments for both MOA and MilRad, so I think that's pretty cool as well. 1/4 inch clicks for MOA. Now, I should also mention that this thing right here is, it's got some really nice settings on it. It's got 11 brightness settings. It, as a matter of fact, does have 2 night vision settings, which is fantastic, again, because this is built for combat. So it has 2 night vision settings, and then it has 8 settings for your standard day brightness, and then it has 1 setting that is pretty much extremely bright, and that's going to be perfect for people like me who are out in the desert or extremely bright climates. Now, rounding out some of the details of this optic right here, remember in the beginning I said if this was built for 3-gun, then yes, I would change some things. If it was built for combat, then no, I wouldn't. Well, one of the things I would change if this thing was built for competition is that it is pretty heavy. It weighs 31.5 ounces. That is with the integrated mount, however. So 31.5 ounces. It's a little bit heavier, but that's because it's tougher. If you're talking about something for 3-gun, obviously you're going to be finding some lighter optics that are out there. They're going to be less durable, but they're lighter and a little bit easier to move around. pound. This thing coming in at 31.5 ounces does make it a little bit heavy, so that's something that you want to keep in mind. Now, another thing, this is 10.8 inches long, and it's just got a lot to offer. I mean, for a Trijicon, this thing's fantastic. It does use a standard AA battery. That's another one of the things I would change if you're talking about a competition optic, because there's some guys out there looking at some type of competition optic, a 1-to-6 or a 1-to-8 that might be comparable, and saying, oh, it's a little bit less money and it uses a standard 2032 battery. Well, 2032 batteries are great. They have a better battery life than a standard AA. But if you're talking about a combat optic, you want to be able to get batteries that are pretty much universally available wherever you are, and that's a AA battery. This uses a standard AA battery, a lithium AA battery. You can put that in there. It gives you a little bit over 600 hours of runtime. That can be mitigated with the brightness features, because the brightness on the scope, that 600 hours is actually translated by I think level 6 on the brightness settings right there. So it's going to be a little bit less if you dial it up, a little bit more if you dial it down. But in between each one of the brightness settings, there's actually an off switch. So as you're going through your brightness, it goes off, then to the next one, off to the next one, which is great, because if I like setting at setting number 11, or I like the brightest possible setting, instead of winding it all the way back, I can simply bring it back one notch. It's going to turn it on, or turn it off, excuse me. And then when I'm out shooting again, all I have to do is just bring it back that one setting, and I'm right back at that highest power that I'm used to right there. So again, battery life is not going to be as good as with the 2032. It's just not going to be what you're going to get out of that. But AA batteries are extremely available, and so just taking off this cap right here, sliding in a new AA, and you're good to go for another 600 hours. Just keep it in mind. But the great thing about this optic too is that it doesn't have just an illuminated reticle. It has a really nice black, typical standard reticle. So if you're shooting this during the day, or even kind of later or earlier hours, and you do lose battery life, you're not losing your reticle. You still have your typical reticle. It's just going to be black instead of red. Now, my own personal experience with this optic has been fantastic. I mean, the second you take this thing out of the box is like a Trijicon VCOG box, or even an RMR box, but just a lot bigger. When you take this thing out, you get an overall sense of its durability, but the second you put it on a rifle, you take it out to shoot with it, you can really see that quality come into play. It's got extremely clear glass, complete edge-to-edge clarity, so there's no distortion anywhere in the glass. You get really nice color, excellent light transmission. I mean, basically everything that you would want for the price that you're going to pay for this scope, because it is not inexpensive, that's what you get in this. So it is really incredible to see what Trijicon has done with this product here. Now, another thing that I liked is that the glass is clear edge to edge. There is no distortion anywhere. There's nothing on the edge that's going to kind of bow out or bow up or down, depending on how you're looking at it in the scope. It's got a multi-coated lens. It's anti-reflective. I mean, everything about this is just very nice. I mean, there's nothing really that I can criticize here, because they designed this with a specific purpose. And if I think about it with that purpose in mind, then again, it's just a great scope. I mean, that's really all there is to it. I have a lot of fun shooting with it. One of the things that you'll notice is that in my shooting video, even though it's blurry because I didn't have the camera mount set up just right, apparently it was sitting a little bit too far back, and so I didn't get the clarity. It's a little bit fuzzy and a little bit blurry. You can still tell that I'm shooting during the day. And with these types of optics where you have the illumination setting even turned all the way up bright, a lot of times you can't see that illumination during the day, especially in the desert. The sun's directly above you. You can't see that illumination. But with this one right here on that brightest setting, you can absolutely see the illumination. It is right there, right in front of you, and it's easy to pick up. But again, with the black crosshairs, you can go ahead and turn that off and you can still see it, no problem. So I really enjoyed shooting with it a lot. It's accurate, it's durable. The mount is pretty nice. There's some people that may not like it because they may like the ability to switch out this mount for something that's quick detach. That's something that's, you've got to think about for yourself. But it does have some pretty nice large knobs right here. So you only have to get it down finger tight. This thing stays on pretty well. We have two different knobs, and then all you have to do is just unscrew it, take this thing off, and you know that it's going to re-zero if you put it on another rifle, or take it off and put it back on the rifle, because again, because it's integrated, as long as you have this thing pushed up against those rail mounts, you're going to be just fine. It's going to re-zero perfect, and then just go ahead and hand tighten it down. So even though it's not quick detach, it doesn't require any tools to take on or off. Okay, so there it is, the Trijicon VCOG 1-8x28. It's a lot of money. It is worth every penny if you can afford it. If not, obviously it seems completely ridiculous and out of budget. But if you're looking for a durable combat optic in 1-8, I really don't think you can beat this one right here. So anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thanks again to OpticsPlanet for sending this out to the channel. Please like, subscribe. Have a great day.